quickly. The surge buckled this bridge and then completely washed it away. Scientists say human-induced climate change is supercharging these types of storms. And tonight there is widespread flooding across the island and flash flood warnings remain in effect. Rob Marciano standing by with the latest track, and we are set to talk with FEMA's administrator about the active first response and recovery effort. But first, ABC's Victor Oquendo leads us off from Puerto Rico.
Tonight, Hurricane Fiona pummeling the Dominican Republic, making its second landfall as a Category 1 hurricane, as communities across Puerto Rico are inundated with devastating floodwaters. Fiona making its first landfall in the U.S. territory Sunday, winds gusting over 100 miles an hour, ripping off roofs. In the mountain town of Utuado, a torrent of floodwater tearing apart this bridge and sweeping it away. It's now been more than 24 hours since Hurricane Fiona made landfall, and the rain just hasn't let up. Some areas could see up to 30 inches of rain. Fiona coming nearly 5 years to the day since Category 4 Maria. Here in Salinas, Luis Cruz says his home of 36 years, now a total loss. Was it this bad? Was the flooding like this during Hurricane Maria?
Never. No. Here.
This is worse now.
Oh, yeah.
Climate change supercharging the amount of rain hurricanes now bring.
Los daños a la infraestructura.
Puerto Rico's governor calling the damage catastrophic. The National Guard and first responders rescuing more than 1,000 people. Ruben Ramos and his mother Onelia waiting 7 hours to be saved. The water, she says that the water was running just like this, but inside of her house. Nearly the entire island without electricity, and hundreds of thousands have no running water.
Water issues now on top of the power outages. Victor Oquendo joins us now from Puerto Rico. And Victor, we know Puerto Rico's power grid never fully recovered after Maria. What are officials telling you tonight as far as when power will likely be restored?
Lindsay, the private company that operates the power grid here in Puerto Rico, says it could take several days to restore power to the entire island. But every resident that I've spoken with here believes it will take longer than that. And unfortunately, there is more heavy rain on the way tonight. Lindsay?
All right, Victor Oquendo for us. Thanks so much, Victor. Joining us now for more on Puerto Rico's ongoing power struggles is FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell. Deanne, thank you so much for joining us. Hurricanes, of course, regularly hit the island nation, and there are concerns that they will only get worse with climate change. Would you say that FEMA adequately was prepared for this?
Lindsay, thanks so much for having me on today. FEMA is definitely prepared to support the hurricane that we're seeing right now in Puerto Rico from Hurricane Fiona or any other natural disaster that might strike the U.S. But as you said, we're seeing an increase in the number of these types of events across the country, these significant rain events that we saw earlier this year, flash flooding records that are breaking records that have been set hundreds of years before. We are postured and we are ready to support these, but we have to focus on what we can do to start to reduce the impacts that these communities are seeing from these types of events so we don't have to respond as much and we can increase their resilience.
What are you seeing as the biggest needs right now in Puerto Rico?
The focus right now, as the storm has passed, is always life safety at first. We want to make sure that we have the right resources in place to support any life-saving activities that need to happen, and then power restoration. We want to make sure that we can get that power restored as quickly as we can, or temporary power put in place as we're restoring it. Those two things really support the rest of the recovery efforts.
And you just mentioned that power restoration. Of course, we see issues with power grids here on the mainland, whether it's in Texas or California or parts of the Midwest, yet those grids seem to come back up within days. Why is Puerto Rico's power situation still so unreliable 5 years after Maria?
You know, what we see after any type of a major hurricane like we're seeing now is our power grid does go down. You know, we saw the power go out in Louisiana last year after Hurricane Ida, and it was out for several days as well. We are really focused now on what is it that we need to do to bring this power back up. But as we go into the recovery and as we continue to recover from Maria, we want to make sure that we're rebuilding and supporting Puerto Rico and making sure we're rebuilding it in a way that it's more resilient, that it can support and withstand future events like this.
And your colleague, Ann Bank, from the Office of Response and Recovery, testified before Congress just last Thursday. And we learned that out of the $9.5 billion that was set aside 5 years ago, only 1.5 of that sum has been dispersed. Why isn't the money able to flow faster?